In 2013, Jim Nabors shocked the world. At 82 years old, he married his partner of 38 years. Fans had no idea he even existed. The wedding saved them $4.8 million in taxes. But it also opened old wounds. 7 years after Jim's death, his partner is finally sharing their story. The real reason they hid for 4 decades? The Hollywood scandal that destroyed Jim's friendship with Rock Hudson? The liver transplant that changed everything? What Stan reveals about their hidden life will change how you see Gomer Pyle forever. Jim Nabors was born on June 12, 1930, in a tiny town called Sylacauga, Alabama. Back then, only about 8,000 people lived there. His family shared a small 3-room house with his grandmother. It was the middle of the Great Depression, and life was hard. Unemployment in Alabama was above 25%, and many families barely scraped by. The Nabors family was no different. They struggled every day just to have enough to eat. Growing up in that world taught Jim to stay humble and strong, lessons that stayed with him for the rest of his life. As if poverty wasn't enough, Jim also battled severe asthma. In the 1930s and 1940s, asthma treatments weren't like today. He would often be stuck in bed, struggling to breathe. Sports were out of the question, which was tough for a boy growing up in the South. But instead of giving in to loneliness, Jim turned to music. He started singing to pass the time, and soon it became his passion. What felt like a curse, the asthma, ended up pushing him toward the path that would make him famous. His mother, Mavis, worked long hours at a truck stop, waiting tables for whatever tips she could get. His father, Fred, took any job he could find. Eventually, Fred became the town's police officer. It wasn't a high-paying job, but it brought some stability. To help put food on the table, they raised chickens in the yard for eggs and meat. The family's hard work and cleverness helped them get by, and Jim grew up seeing what it meant to work for every little bit. In high school, Jim's hidden gift came out. He joined the glee club and sang in the church choir. Nobody expected the quiet, asthmatic boy to have such a big, rich voice. But when Jim sang, it shocked everyone. His baritone was so powerful that teachers and choir directors gave him solos. His voice became the highlight of local events, and it gave him a new kind of confidence that would guide him through life. After high school, Jim went to the University of Alabama to study business. He was trying to choose the safe path, but in college, something changed. He joined Delta Tau Delta fraternity, and that's where he first tried acting. He performed in their skits and shows, and people noticed. Jim was funny, natural, and at ease on stage. Even though he was focused on business classes, he found himself drawn to performing. His time in college showed that he wasn't just smart. He had talent and charm, too. When he graduated, Jim needed work. He moved to New York City and became a typist at the United Nations. It was a far cry from the stage. He typed up reports in a big, cold office, feeling lonely and far from home. The city's dirty air made his asthma worse. He dreamed of being part of the entertainment world. But for now, he was just trying to make ends meet. His health forced him to leave New York. Jim moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and got a job at a local TV station, WRGP-TV. He worked as a film cutter, slicing together news clips and ads. It wasn't glamorous, but it taught him how TV worked behind the scenes. Late at night, he'd practice his routines in the empty studio, pretending the chairs were an audience. In the late 1950s, his asthma pushed him west. He packed up and went to Los Angeles. There, he worked as a film cutter for NBC during the day. At night, he performed in small clubs. He barely slept and lived on peanut butter sandwiches. But he kept going, convinced that if he worked hard enough, someone would notice him. At the Horn, a small nightclub in Santa Monica, Jim created the act that would change his life. He played a shy, clumsy country boy who'd stumble onto the stage and then surprise everyone with a booming operatic voice. The crowd loved the mix of comedy and incredible singing. His shows became so popular that producers started showing up to see what all the fuss was about. One night in 1962, comedian Bill Dana saw Jim perform. Bill was so impressed that he got Jim a spot on the Steve Allen Show. Jim did his hillbilly routine and then wowed the audience with his voice. The reaction was huge. Suddenly, Jim was getting calls from agents and producers. After all those years of struggle, his moment had finally come. One night, Andy Griffith came to the club. He watched Nabors perform and was amazed. He offered him a one-time role on the Andy Griffith Show. Nabors would play Gomer Pyle, a sweet but dim gas station attendant. What was supposed to be a single appearance changed everything. Nabors' charm won over everyone. The producers knew right away they had found something special. That chance meeting in a small club changed Nabors' life forever. It also changed American comedy. When Gomer Pyle first appeared on TV in 1962, people couldn't get enough of him. His catchphrases, "Gaoli" and "Shazayam," became hits almost overnight. His wide-eyed look and thick Southern drawl made these words unforgettable. Kids started saying "Gaoli" on playgrounds. Grown-ups used it at work. Even politicians couldn't resist. These funny phrases spread everywhere. They showed up in comic strips. They were used in ads. They even inspired toys and shirts. The words were fun and harmless. They didn't mention God or magic directly, which was important for TV back then. Gomer's simple joy touched people during a time when the country was changing fast. His words felt safe and full of wonder. The character of Gomer became so popular that CBS had no choice. Within just months of his first appearance, Gomer was added as a regular on the Andy Griffith Show. Fans sent in letters by the hundreds asking for more Gomer. People loved his kindness, his funny ways, and the way he balanced out Andy's serious sheriff character. Soon, Gomer's stories became some of the most loved parts of the show. He even started to steal the spotlight from other characters. Nabors' rise from guest star to regular was rare. It showed just how much people connected with Gomer's goodness and humor. Gomer's success didn't stop there. In 1964, CBS made a bold move. They gave him his own show, Goomerpile USMC. That didn't happen often back then. Spin-offs were rare, and few side characters ever got their own series. But the gamble worked. When Goomerpile USMC first aired on September 25, 1964, it became a hit overnight. People fell in love with the sweet, naive Gomer, played by Jim Nabors, and the hot-tempered Sergeant Carter, played by Frank Sutton. The mix of Gomer's kindness and Carter's constant frustration made viewers laugh every week. Gomer had only appeared in 23 episodes of The Andy Griffith Show before getting his own series. That showed how much people loved him. The show ran for 5 seasons. It gave fans 150 episodes. It never dropped below 10th place in the Nielsen ratings. When it ended, it was the second most watched show in America, just behind Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. The magic came from how well Nabors and Sutton worked together. Gomer's innocent charm and Carter's loud anger made every scene fun to watch. Behind the camera, Aaron Rubin and Sheldon Leonard knew they had something special. They filmed in California, but they captured the heart of small-town America inside a Marine base. Even now, people still watch the reruns and buy the DVDs. Jim Nabors was in almost every scene. That was rare at the time. His character became a symbol of kindness and goodness across the country. One surprising thing about the show was how it completely avoided talking about the Vietnam War. From 1964 to 1969, America was in the middle of that terrible conflict, but Gomer Pyle never once mentioned it. The producers and CBS wanted to give people a break from the sadness and worry of real life. They wanted the show to feel like comfort food for the soul. So they focused on funny mix-ups, Gomer's good heart, and Carter's shouting. It worked. The show stayed in the top 3 for most of its run. Families across America tuned in to escape the harsh reality of the times. But behind the smiles and the jokes, Jim Nabors faced pain that most viewers never saw. His sexuality was something he had to keep hidden. In the 1960s, being gay could destroy a career. Many of his co-stars and crew members knew, and some of them treated him badly because of it. They made cruel jokes. They left him out. They acted like he didn't belong. Nabors had to stay silent, afraid that speaking up would cost him everything. Imagine putting on a cheerful face for millions while carrying that fear inside every day. Years later, people like Ron Howard admitted they saw what Nabors went through. They noticed the cold shoulders and the mean comments. They saw how he wasn't welcomed the same way as the straight actors. Nabors kept going, always professional, always kind. His strength was quiet, but it was there. His story opened people's eyes to how hard it was for gay actors during Hollywood's so-called golden years. It also showed how much courage it took to keep going. On top of all that, Nabors worked harder than most stars. His days lasted 12 hours. He often started before the sun came up. Every night, he had to memorize as many as 15 pages of dialogue. He had no time to rest, no time to just be himself. He performed in nightclubs and concerts during weekends and breaks. He tried to keep busy, maybe to escape the stress and fear that followed him. Even at the height of his fame, he worried that it could all vanish if the truth came out. Jim Nabors' entry into the music world in 1965 was something nobody saw coming. He had already become famous as Gomer Pyle, the goofy, kind-hearted character who made people laugh. But when he signed with Columbia Records, he revealed a side of himself that stunned fans. His rich, operatic baritone voice was nothing like Gomer's high-pitched drawl. Over the next 10 years, he recorded more than 30 albums. Most were filled with romantic ballads, but he also sang pop, gospel, and country. His success wasn't just about how many albums he made. 12 of them made it onto the Billboard Hot 200 chart. And between 1968 and 1974, 3 of his albums went gold. His 1966 album Jim Nabors Sings Love Me With All Your Heart even reached number 34 on the Billboard chart. In 1968, his version of The Impossible Dream became a surprise hit in Australia, climbing into the top 30. Fans who only knew him as Gomer couldn't believe it. His voice and music won him respect in a way no one had expected. At the same time, Nabors formed a bond with Carol Bernett that became part of television history. In 1967, when The Carol Burnett Show started, Nabors appeared as the special guest on the very first episode. That wasn't a one-time thing. For the next 11 years, he was the featured guest for every season premiere, all the way until the show ended in 1978. Carol called him her good luck charm, and audiences agreed. When Nabors and Bernett shared the stage, their friendship and chemistry were impossible to miss. People looked forward to his appearances because they always brought heart, humor, and unforgettable music. No matter how busy he was, Nabors made time for the show. Fans came to see his presence as a promise that the season was off to a great start. Nabors also took the spotlight in his own variety shows. From 1969 to 1971, the Jim Nabors Hour brought together music, comedy, and familiar faces from his earlier work. He also starred in TV specials in 1969 and 1974. His singing always shined, But his dancing was another story. Nabors was the first to admit he didn't have much rhythm, and he often made fun of himself for it. During one live show, he tried an ambitious dance move and ended up splitting his pants right there on stage. Instead of being embarrassed, he laughed along with everyone else. The moment became part of his charm, showing how willing he was to poke fun at himself and turn a mishap into a highlight. In 1972, Nabors started what would become one of the most beloved traditions in American sports. He sang Back Home Again in Indiana at the Indianapolis 500. Fans loved it so much that he kept coming back. Over the years, he sang the song 34 times in person between 1972 and 2014. His deep, powerful voice filled the Speedway, with tens of thousands of people singing along. The Purdue Marching Band backed him up, and the moment always brought goosebumps. Even when his health kept him from being there in person, a video of his performance played before the race. When he sang it for the last time in 2014, the event was full of tributes and emotional goodbyes. Nabors had become part of the race's soul, and fans saw him as one of their own. As musical tastes changed in the late 1970s, Nabors didn't try to chase trends. Instead, he switched to Ranwood Records, a label that celebrated easy listening and traditional pop. The world was moving on to disco and rock, but Nabors stayed true to what he did best. His loyal fans kept buying his records, drawn to his familiar voice and heartfelt songs. Ranwood, founded by Randy Wood and Lawrence Welk, gave Nabors a home where his music could keep thriving. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, Hollywood was a dangerous place for actors who didn't fit the image studios created for them. Being openly gay could destroy a career overnight. At the center of one of the most famous scandals of that time were Jim Nabors, the beloved Gomer Pyle, and Rock Hudson, the handsome star everyone saw as the perfect leading man. Their names became linked by a joke that got out of hand. A group of gay friends in Huntington Beach sent out funny invitations for a fake wedding. The invites said it was the wedding reception of Rock Hudson and Jim Nabors. They even called Hudson Rock Pyle as a play on Nabors' character's name. But what started as a private joke spread like wildfire. Gossip columns grabbed onto the story, and soon it was all over the national press. In those days, a rumor like that could end a career. Both men were so frightened that they stopped being seen together. They sacrificed their friendship to protect their jobs. Years later, the story took another strange turn. A former Vogue model, who kept her name secret, said she had been at that so-called wedding. She claimed she was just 15 years old when she went with a friend of Rock Hudson's to what she thought would be a regular wedding between a man and a woman. Instead, she said she found herself in a candle-lit living room in Belgravia. The room was full of male designers and supermodels. She watched in shock as a priest married two men. She said, "I was an innocent 15-year-old at the time and was stunned by the whole thing. I can't remember what responses Rock and Jim made to the priest. Whether true or not, this tale gave the old rumor new life. It showed how confusing and secretive life was for gay stars back then, and it made the public even more curious about what had really happened. The damage from the rumor was huge. Jim Nabors was about to land a big new show on CBS. He was already a hit from The Andy Griffith Show and Gomer Pyle USMC. But when the marriage talk got louder, CBS backed away. The network didn't want to risk their image on a star caught in a gay scandal. Nabors lost the chance at a major career move. Even worse, he and Hudson stopped speaking. They had once gone on vacations together and shared good times, but now they kept their distance. Both men knew that even a photo together could harm their careers. Both Hudson and Nabors had to deny the rumors in public. They said the story came from a joke invitation and nothing more. But the damage was done. They avoided each other, and their managers worked hard to make them look like straight stars. Nabors was told to go out with actresses for show. He refused because he thought that might backfire. Studios even moved actors to different neighborhoods to stop gossip. The stress of all this was heavy. Both men lived in fear that one slip could ruin them. The shadow of the scandal followed them for years. As if all that weren't enough, Nabors faced a terrifying moment at a show in the Houston Astrodome. That place could hold over 60,000 people. During his act, a woman with razor blades taped to her fingers got close to him. She slashed his arm, and blood poured out. Marines who were there because of his ties to Gomer Pyle rushed to protect him. They formed a human shield and got him to safety. He needed fast medical care and was taken to the hospital. The attack left deep scars on him. After that, he feared crowds and became more careful about his safety. Offstage, the real Jim Nabors was nothing like Gomer Pyle. Friends and interviewers were shocked at his salty language. In one chat, the 84-year-old Nabors dropped an F-bomb within 2 minutes. He kept it up for the whole interview, all in his soft Southern drawl. Fans who met him in private found him funny and real, but they were surprised by the difference between the man and the character they knew. All those years of hiding who he really was took a toll on Nabors. He lived with constant stress, trying to protect his career while keeping his true self secret. That pressure led to anxiety and health problems. The weight of being a public hero and a private outsider was too much at times. Slowly, Nabors stepped away from the Hollywood scene. By the late 1970s, he found peace in Hawaii. He bought more than 170 acres on Maui and built a simple house in 1979. There, away from the cameras, he could finally be himself. He lived with his partner and formed a close group of friends. Jim Nabors met Stan Cadwallader in July 1975, and that moment changed his life forever. Jim was in Hawaii celebrating his 45th birthday. Stan was a 27-year-old firefighter from Michigan who had just moved to Honolulu. Their first meeting happened at the Ala Moana shopping center. They connected so deeply that they had dinner together that very night. Despite the 18-year age difference, they felt an instant bond. Stan was living on a boat and had just started with the Honolulu Fire Department, following his father's path. From that night, they became inseparable. Stan wasn't just Jim's partner. He became his confidant, his business partner, and his greatest support. At a time when same-sex relationships were illegal in most of the U.S., their love was brave and quiet. For over 35 years, Jim and Stan kept their relationship hidden. In the public eye, Jim was always alone or with friends. When Stan appeared with him, people assumed he was just an assistant or part of Jim's business team. They had to do this to protect Jim's career. Hollywood wasn't kind to actors who lived openly as gay men. Even at big events, like the 1978 Indianapolis 500 where Jim sang, no one guessed the truth. Their privacy wasn't about shame. It was about survival in a world that wouldn't have accepted them. In 1976, Jim made Hawaii his permanent home. He and Stan built a quiet life there, far from the bright lights of Bel Air. They lived together in a secluded house. Jim owned a macadamia plantation on Maui, which he ran for 25 years before selling it to a conservation group. Stan handled Jim's personal affairs and business matters. Few people outside their closest circle even knew Stan existed. Together, they lived simply, supporting each other through everything. Stan was there for Jim during the hardest times. In 1994, Jim's health began to fail. He was 61 when fatigue overwhelmed him. His skin turned yellow, his limbs swelled, and he grew weaker each day. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. The situation became urgent. A doctor rushed him to the Mayo Clinic. Tests showed that his liver had almost completely failed. Without a transplant, Jim had only months to live. Doctors found that a hepatitis B infection had destroyed his liver. Jim believed he got it during a trip to India years earlier. His electric razor failed, and he used a straight razor instead. He cut himself badly, and that small mistake nearly cost him his life. The infection had quietly damaged his liver until it suddenly stopped working. Only a transplant could save him. Carol Bernett stepped in. She contacted Dr. Gary Gitnick at UCLA, one of the top liver specialists. Thanks to her help, Jim was admitted for a transplant. On February 7, 1994, Jim had a 7-hour surgery. The new liver saved him. After that, Jim changed. He spoke openly about organ donation. He supported liver disease awareness. And slowly, he stopped hiding his personal life. Their love story stayed hidden for nearly 4 decades. It wasn't until January 15, 2013, that they finally married. By then, Jim was 82 and Stan was 64. They chose a small private ceremony at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel in Seattle. Only a judge and a few friends were there. Their marriage shocked fans who had no idea that Jim had been in a committed relationship for 38 years. Jim said later, "We've been together for 38 years, and I'm not ashamed of people knowing. It's just that it was such a personal thing, I didn't tell anybody." Jim Nabors' marriage to Stan Cadwallader was much more than a personal milestone. It changed everything for his estate and his partner's future. When Nabors died in 2017, his fortune was estimated at $13 million. Because they were legally married, Cadwallader inherited everything without paying federal or Hawaii state estate taxes. That was only possible because of the unlimited marital deduction granted to married couples. Before marriage equality, partners in same-sex relationships could lose millions to taxes. Experts say Nabors' decision saved at least $4.8 million that would have gone to the government. Instead, that money stayed with Stan. Nabors' story showed how marriage equality didn't just change lives. It protected legacies, too. Even in his later years, Nabors stayed connected to the stage. From 1972 onward, his voice became part of the Indianapolis 500. He sang "Back Home Again" in Indiana almost every year for over 40 years. Fans came to see him as part of the race itself. He kept up the tradition into his 80s, performing for the last time in 2014 at the age of 84. His health made it too hard to travel after that, but people still remember how his voice lifted the pre-race ceremony. Organizers found it hard to fill his place. For many, there was simply no replacement for Jim Nabors at the Indianapolis 500. Nabors died on November 30, 2017, at the age of 87. He passed away peacefully at his home in Honolulu with Stan at his side. His journey had taken him from a small town in Alabama to nationwide fame, and finally to a place where he could live openly and honestly. His health had faded, especially in the last year, after years of battling illness and having a liver transplant. But in the end, he had love, peace, and the comfort of his own home.